All right, so as I mentioned earlier, I work with electronic textiles, which are a subset of this field of wearables. As Valérie Lamontagne described, this is a term that actually encompasses an extremely broad range of projects and practices, everything from these like sticker-like electronic tattoos to collaborative design experiments. It's actually a term that is really used for a very, very broad multitude of different work that relates to the body. The current commercial reality, though, is really still grounded in what we in the VC and the venture capital world call the early adopters. So usually males of a certain age and socioeconomic class who do a lot of exercise and want to track their performance, their fitness levels. So those various devices that are usually wrist-worn these days then connect to apps that track, analyze, compare, and link to social media. Other than these wrist-worn devices, there have been some experiments in penetrating the rest of the body through jewelry-like straps, head-mounted displays, etc. But in general, the commercial field of wearables is still deeply anchored in this industrial design device reality. So my work, in contrast, has been to focus on the rest of the body, so to actually engage with everything beyond the wrist. I even talk about beyond the wrist interaction, and therefore to specifically look at textiles, which are materials we already engage with on our bodies on a day-to-day basis. However, to take those textiles and to push them further, to augment them, to actually use traditional ways of making as much as possible, but to replace some of the core materials with new functional fibers. So everything from very simple, silver threads that can then allow us to weave sensors into garments. So I work for Signal in my spare time. So I helped to I developed all the IP for the Signal biometric shirts, for actually the ways that we knit all of the ECG, the heart sensors, and the breathing sensors into the shirts themselves. So our first shirt was a Ralph Lauren branded Polo Tech product. What's really important to me is to work as much as possible within the tradition of making and manufacturing. Manufacturing for the very reason that we do want to manufacture these objects, and making because ways of making that allow us to make the prototypes, and I guess I'm using the word making to refer to short-run productions or individual prototypes as opposed to manufacturing, which is scaling at cost. Because what I call making actually is an extremely technologically rich history. So weaving, knitting, those are very complex technologies that have been around for hundreds, even thousands of years, that actually contribute a lot to the integrity of the objects that we make. So by using and respecting these histories of making, but adding new kinds of fibers and coatings and processes, we can actually create these objects that have additional functionalities. So not only clothing our body, these Signal shirts also have antimicrobial treatments, so they don't smell too bad if you sweat in them a lot. They also are these circular knits that help you with your posture. So they have a lot of traditional textile functionality, as well as some of this digital textile functionality insofar as they give you a very accurate signal of your heart activity, not just your heart rate, but your full heart signal, as well as your breathing and your movement, etc., that will allow you to develop new insights into your into your body, what's happening. The current applications deal with sports, but there is huge potential both on the utopic and dystopic end of things for crowdsourcing this information to develop deeper insights for either good or nefarious purposes. Beyond this idea of the quantified, and this is where my pet peeve comes in, working with students, working with designers in my many collaborations, my main pet peeve is as soon as we engage with these new materials, with this materiality that allows us to develop electronic, interactive, mediated kinds of garments, I find that our minds slip into a product kind of mindset. So even beautiful artifacts that are created smell like products. They don't smell like craft anymore. What do I mean by that is the concepts become simpler. So working with this new materiality, these smart textiles, these interactive textiles, suddenly it's not just about a pleasurable, bizarre experience. And this is work from my research lab, Access Labs, where we actually try to still engage with these very experimental, these are energy generating garments that are by their very nature uncomfortable. This one is called itchy. And it's very itchy, and as you move and you scratch yourself, you actually generate energy, right? And the energy then powers these lights around your neck, which references kind of like safety beacons and a state of emergency, and actually highlights the discomfort of the garment. You know, so I try to actually, while developing these new materials and while developing the methods for these future textiles, to still engage with the playful, perhaps pleasurable, perhaps, well, performative, of course, but also almost, you know, well, the complexity of what object making has been historically, right? And my huge pet peeve is that working with these electronic materials switches designers and maybe a lot of artists as well. I was just reading critiques of the Ars Electronica Festival, but I won't get distracted by that. But switches the minds of designers and craftspeople to a product-like way of thinking, meaning this has to have a certain use, it has to solve a certain problem, and it has to be good. Right? It has to be something that not necessarily can sell, but that has a purpose that can be defined in one sentence. So that's my pet peeve about these new materials. I'll just finish, I'll skip through a couple of the slides and just finish with talking about my current deep interest in these new materials and my relationship with these new materials. Because I think it's very important to respect the history of both making and manufacturing and just build on top of that. And this is where the huge potential of making these augmented artifacts and experiences will come to fruition if we can actually use existing factories, existing looms, and et cetera, but adapt them to integrate these conductive fibers or the other fibers I'm developing in collaboration with scientists, fibers that will replace capacitors, batteries, etc., while still being used in traditional making and manufacturing processes. On top of that, there is so much potential to then start integrating new ways of making. So I've shown you here a whole list of additive manufacturing and additive or prototyping, I guess, techniques available right now. And finally, there is such exciting potential to the future of materials and how we're going to work with these materials, not just from the world of electronics, but of course from material science and chemistry. So I look forward to the discussion later about how we can really leverage the potential of this new materiality, and a lot of it in my opinion, has to come down to training better designers who understand the complexities of these materials without working on a solely superficial gadget-like, if I can say that, level. Okay, I'm just going to jump through all of these.